Welcome to the third Market Information Day prior to the launch of the formal procurement process for the Energy Recovery Facility, a key part of the North London Heat and Power project called the NLHPP, being delivered by the North London Waste Authority. My name is David Cullen and I'm the Programme Director for the NLHPP. This is the third and last Information Day, and it builds on two previous events. It will not cover exactly the same ground as those two. We aim to provide you with further helpful content and information as you prepare for the start of the procurement process. So please also review the information from the first two events, which is available through the NLHPP website. Our virtual approach today is necessitated, of course, by COVID-19 safety restrictions, but we aim to provide useful detail about the project, as well as an overview on what you can expect from working with the authority as a client. We invite you to engage with the content in the most helpful way to you, review it at your own pace, pause and reflect, and of course take the opportunity to seek clarification from us. The means of doing this will be explained at the end of the presentation. We start all our formal meetings with a safety moment, and I would like us to take a few minutes to reflect on a safety topic. This relates to a project I worked on previously. As part of a hydropower scheme, we took over the supervision of a road building project in a mountain gorge in Albania with highly faulted and friable geology. The original scheme was halted and the road redesigned with construction safety in mind. The work was rescheduled to be constructed in controlled sections only after inspection and release by geologists, and then targeted scaling by alpinists. Tragically, 3 alpinists were killed after initiating a major rockfall in an area they were not authorised to be in. It is particularly tragic as their work was part of the safety system we had put in place. Most work-related accidents are caused by the behaviour of employees, not through a lack of or inadequacy of safe procedures for work. The procedures must certainly be rigorously enforced, effectively communicated and kept under continual assessment. But we need to develop a workplace culture where behavioural errors, whether violations, mistakes or lapses, is avoided. That is a priority for the NLHPP. More on that later. I would now like to hand you over to Martin Capstick, the Managing Director of the North London Waste Authority, to start the main presentation.
I'm Martin Capstick, the Managing Director of the Authority. I'd like to introduce the webinar by providing the context for the project. Let me talk about the North London Waste Authority. We are the statutory body with responsibility for disposing of the waste of the 7 boroughs shown on this slide. These represent over 2 million residents, and that population is growing. With waste responsibilities of such a scale, it's essential that our authority procures a secure, reliable, environmentally responsible solution for residual waste treatment, which covers all our projected need. Our income comes via a levy on these boroughs, which gives us assured local authority funding for this critical asset. The reason this event is a webinar is because of us all adapting to the coronavirus restrictions. And I should comment at the outset about how that affects the context of the project. Just before doing so, let me step back and talk about service delivery during the pandemic. The waste sector has rightly had a heightened profile as a key service on which society relies in the last few months. Its success has shown the importance of committed services supported by the right infrastructure, and that recognises the importance of this project. As the slide shows, talking about the project itself, we recognised with COVID-19 that there were uncertainties at the outset of lockdown, and so we secured a managed demobilisation to maintain safety. In areas beyond construction, we proceeded on programme, and I'm proud of the team that it's a great indication of the commitment to moving forward, that whilst working remotely, we've maintained our timetable for this energy recovery facility procurement. We've also made sure that we've communicated our safety actions to the public. And I'm very pleased that we've safely restarted work so that construction is now active again to achieve our pre-ERF milestones on the project. I'll hand you over now to my colleagues as set out on this slide, who will introduce themselves and provide more detail on key issues associated with the procurement. I'm sure this will be excellently informative, and I'll return at the end of the presentation to summarise.
Thank you, Martin. Firstly, a brief recap of the background to the project that has led us to this point. The current plant at Edmonton Eco Park, shown here, is one of the oldest energy from waste plants serving in Europe, being first commissioned in the 1970s. It is reaching the end of its operational life, and we now need to invest in a solution for managing the waste from North London's 2 million residents. Alternative options were looked at as potential solutions to avoid landfilling in the future. A modern standards energy recovery facility is concluded to provide the best value for taxpayers and for protection of the environment. Development consent was granted for the NLHPP in 2017, following extensive consultations and a full environmental assessment. The NLHPP will provide proven, reliable and safe infrastructure for our residents and is a vital part of the authority's sustainable waste strategy for the future. Again, as a brief reminder of the background to the new project, here is an aerial view of the Eco Park in Edmonton, showing the key features of the NLHPP. You can see the energy recovery facility to the north of the Eco Park, and also the Eco Park South Works, consisting of the resource recovery facility and Eco Park House. The contract for the design and build of these works to the south of the park is about to be awarded. What is not evident from the overview is the extensive site preparation and enabling works currently underway, required to prepare the footprints for the permanent works construction, whilst keeping the Eco Park fully operational. The grey flat rectangle indicates the site of the current energy from waste facility, which will be decommissioned and demolished as a separate works contract after the new ERF is proven in operation. To the east of the Eco Park is the laydown and welfare facility currently under construction and due to complete at the end of 2020, for first use by the contractor for the Eco Park South Works and subsequently by the ERF contractor. The NLHPP is part of North London's approach to tackling the climate emergency. It will safeguard sustainable waste services as London transitions to net zero. It aligns with landfill reduction policies set by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the European Union, the UK Government, Greater London Authority, North London boroughs and the NLWA. It supports higher recycling rates across North London through provision of a new resource recovery facility and a public reuse and recycling centre. The NLHPP follows the example of the most environmentally advanced countries in Europe, including Germany and Denmark, who recycle over 50% of their waste, avoid landfill, and use non-recyclable waste as a resource to generate heat and electricity. The NLHPP will generate low-carbon heat and power for up to 127,000 homes. The provision of district heating will help unlock the sustainable development of thousands of new homes and businesses at Meridian Water. The project team is aligned behind a challenging vision which frames our view of successful delivery, to provide a beneficial legacy and experience for the community through our presence, to deliver best value and to be able to demonstrate we have done so for the taxpayers, and to consolidate best practice, working smarter and taking opportunities to secure the best outcomes for the project. At the heart of the NLHPP is the energy recovery facility and our proposed technology. Advanced moving drain technology being reliable, robust and proven. A district heating capability set at a minimum of 35 megawatts thermal. Provision of selective catalytic reduction, the highest performing equipment available for NOx removal from emissions. A combined wet-dry flue gas cleaning system being very efficient for the removal of pollutants during peak flows. And we think we will be the first facility in the UK to use this technology. More on the technical approach later in the presentation. We've all had to deal with the impact of COVID-19. In line with our absolute commitment to the safety of our workforce, the authority made the decision to temporarily pause construction and safely demobilise the active sites in order to develop and implement COVID-19 related safe working practices with our contractors, based on the guidance of Public Health England and the safe operating procedures issued by the Construction Leadership Council. Meanwhile, work continued off-site on all other areas of the project development, including the progress on preparation for the procurement of the ERF, of course, and undertaking the negotiation phase of the tender for the Eco Park South works. The team, including our contractors, has adapted magnificently to the need for remote working, and our attention to digital collaboration across the team has helped us enormously to cope with the situation. Shown here are the Happy Core team, who handled the negotiation for the Eco Park South works for the authority. Not pictured are the tenderers, who also helped make the unexpected process so successful. I referred earlier to our decision to pause construction. Our joint task force, including our site preparation works contractors, put together an action plan that would enable us to remobilise and restart construction when we were confident in our ability to protect the workforce in light of COVID-19. I'm pleased to say that our construction has restarted and our compliance with safer working practices is working well. Construction started in January 2019. This includes the temporary laydown area to the east of the River Lee and the access bridge being constructed by Buckingham Group under 2 contracts. Enfield-based company Goldris Construction Limited is appointed under 4 contracts for other aspects of preparatory works. Bar Hill has been appointed to divert the Thames Water main sewers to the south of the site to enable construction of the resource recovery facility. The effective management of health, safety and wellbeing across the project is of prime importance to the authority. This slide shows our goal, the only acceptable goal of zero harm. I think the authority demonstrated its commitment to putting safety first in its recent decision to pause construction. This is where having a clear vision and the team's engagement with it helps determine the right course of action. We've developed a project-wide client-led programme to drive, with the support of our contractors and their commitment to safe working, a consistent world-class standard for the management of health, safety and well-being across the project. For us, being a capable owner for the project, world-class health, safety and well-being means working positively with our partners to consult with our colleagues, stakeholders, business partners, and our supply chain so everyone understands how to keep themselves and others safe and healthy. Commit to fulfill legal and other requirements, understand our risks and act to prevent accidents, work-related ill health and fire-related incidents, effectively eliminate hazards and reduce health and safety risks, invest adequate resources, including time, money and people, to ensure we meet our health and safety objectives, ensure a culture of openness where colleagues can raise concerns and know that they will be listened to, and integrate health and safety into every business decision. Our overarching programme will of course exist within a wider ecosystem of processes and information owned by others. We will help integrate and assure existing contractor processes to deliver the highest possible performance. To enable the project to be a positive role model for employment relations, we've developed an employment relations policy and code of practice. We have also determined that the site will be registered as a NECI site for in-scope works. The authority has consulted with the GMB and Unite unions, the Engineering Construction Industry Association, which represents employers, and the National Joint Council in arriving at this decision for the ERF. We firmly believe that this is an effective and visible way of demonstrating the authority's determination to prioritise the rights of the workforce, and it avoids any risk of ambiguity on this point. For the ERF, the contractor and the unions will enter into a supplementary project agreement based on the NECI Blue Book. We want everyone to have an opportunity to get involved in the project. Our procurement strategy for the ERF is based on a single EPC contract. However, we want small to medium businesses to have the opportunity to become involved, especially local businesses and suppliers. And we want to help parties establish their interest and make connections with other suppliers at all tiers. On the slide is an email address at which suppliers can register interest, providing information that will be included with the tender information to Tier 1 contractors to enable business connections to be made. I hope that you have found this background information helpful, and I would now like to hand over to my colleague, Houston Ling, who will cover the technical content of the tenders.
Thanks, David. My name's Houston Ling and I'm the Head of Technical Assurance on the North London Heat and Power Project. I've been working on the project since late 2013, and today I want to give you a flavour of some of the information that we'll be providing to bidders, and also some of the information that you should expect to receive. In terms of the structure of pre-contract information, bidders will be provided with a suite of information that describes the scope of works and the performance required. The structure of the documents is based on ICAME Red Book and associated suite of schedules. While these are all equally important, I just want to draw your attention to a few particular areas and highlight a few points which you may find useful. In terms of defining the plant performance, there are a set of specifications contained within the schedules. These are a very comprehensive set of documents which are broken down into 9 sub-schedules and around 46 sub-schedules, which clearly set out the authority's expectations. So in terms of defining the minimum quality requirements, Schedule 6 looks at quality assurance and validation, while Schedule 13 looks at pre-installation tests and procedures. Schedule 15 looks at takeover procedures, Schedule 16 at performance tests and procedures, and Schedule 17, performance guarantees. So these are all quite important in terms of defining our minimum quality requirements. As has been mentioned previously, we take health and safety very seriously, and the authority have very clear and definite aims in terms of its expectations for health and safety, which are covered in Schedule 4. In terms of environmental performance, the standards are set out within the site-wide environmental permit, which the authority obtained in mid-2017. Notably, the permit contains a number of pre-operational conditions which the contractor will be required to support the authority in complying with. Other contract information, including the financial commercial framework and the project management arrangements and anticipated timeframes, are included elsewhere in the documents and covered by others within this webinar. In terms of the provision of supporting information, we will provide the following: site-related information on permits and consents. We'll set out matters in relation to operation and maintenance, explain the waste characteristics, intended site logistics and interface, provide a guide for the plant layout and architectural concept, and explain the bidding process, including evaluation criteria and the weight put on technical performance and guarantees, and also on cost. We previously mentioned that the authority already has a development consent order and environmental permit in place. Related to this, we've already discharged most of the requirements under Schedule 2 of the development consent order with the London Borough of Enfield. Other information which we'll provide includes comprehensive site geotechnical and geoenvironmental surveys, as well as information on utilities throughout the site. In terms of waste characteristics, it should come as no surprise that the energy recovery facility will be required to process predominantly local authority collected waste. But the facility will also need to have the ability to process commercial waste, which is similar in nature. During construction of the facility, there'll be a number of logistical interfaces, the most significant of these being the ongoing waste operations carried out by London Energy Limited, and potentially interaction with borough waste delivery vehicles. In terms of the architectural finish, the authority is after a high-quality architectural finish. Being situated in London and having a high degree of visibility, the scheme has been through several rounds of consultation, and we have already settled on an overall look and feel for the energy recovery facility. This also includes a landscaping element through the inclusion of a green roof, a brown roof, and a landscaping plan for the area adjacent to the tipping hall, which will blend into the adjacent Lee Valley Regional Park. The authority is after a high-quality, robust facility. The key driver from a technical perspective is to achieve a high-quality facility that encompasses a well-engineered, well-proven, at this scale, long-lasting design. Consistently high processing capacity, availability, and reliability. Safe and efficient operations, consistent power output and heat output, and compliant emissions. Cost-effective maintenance, and a high degree of automation. Robust infrastructure with supporting digital asset management systems. From a technical perspective, one of the key schedules is that relating to the process specifications. These include technical specifications for the boiler, flue gas treatment system, turbine generator, as well as other specifications covering areas such as pressure vessels, tanks, piping, and concept diagrams. The technical schedules also detail the requirements for civil works such as earthworks, foundations, superstructure, and notably the architectural requirements. In terms of availability, reliability, and consistent power output, Schedule 17 relates to the performance guarantees which bidders will be required to put forward. The technical schedules also contain details for the KKS system for component identification and management, and computerized maintenance management system, or CMMS. These will be required as part of a comprehensive BIM and asset management system, which will be aimed at facilitating the long-term operation and management of the energy recovery facility. So to conclude, From a technical standpoint, fundamentally, what we're after is a high-quality, robust and reliable energy recovery facility which will ensure North London's continued ability to treat its waste in a safe and environmentally beneficial way well into the future. I'll now hand over to Robert Sedgman, who will talk about the commercial aspects of the procurement. Thank you.
Thank you, Euston. Good morning. I am Robert Sedgman and I am the commercial lead for the North London Heat and Power Project. I'd like to talk to you today about the project procurement, the process of procurement, and the allocation of risk. Also, I'll be talking about the structure of potential bid consortia and how these may evolve during the procurement process. Firstly, I would like to talk about the duration of the procurement programme. As you can see from this diagram, we have held to the original programme, in which we will issue the OJEU this July, followed by a selection questionnaire. The selection questionnaire process will run for the rest of the year until we invite people to develop detailed solutions. We will then evaluate those detailed solutions and carry them forward into a dialogue. The dialogue will be for a period of 6 months of intensive discussions, which I will talk about in a moment. Once dialogue has been concluded, we will move forward to develop the final tender, then go through our final gate reviews, get our members' approval, before awarding the contract during the second quarter of 2022. The contract will begin at the beginning of quarter 3 in 2022. Therefore, the selection questionnaire will look at the capabilities and strengths of delivering the project. In particular, we are looking for experience of the technology, the experience of delivering to the size and complexity of the new required facility. One of the very important subjects for us is the ability and the experience of delivering in other projects, health, safety, and well-being for everyone who works on this project. In order to evidence these issues and capabilities, we will be looking at references from previous clients, and in order to ensure deliverability, we will look at the financial ability and stability of all tenders and the various bidders in order to deliver a contract of this size. The technical evidence will carry a mark of 60% to match its importance in this selection process. The format of the selection questionnaire is structured, identical for all bidders, consistent in its evaluation criteria, and follows the market standard. Therefore, everybody can be assured of a fair and equitable process to take them forward to formally bid on this project. The selection criteria is split into various sections. Many of these are a pass or fail, whereby each bidder has to demonstrate their supplier information, answer questions on any grounds there may be for mandatory exclusion, answer questions on the grounds for any reason for discretionary rejection. They will also be asked to answer a series of questions and pass a number of tests on their own economic and financial standing. This will include providing group financial information to the authority, as well as confirming compliance with the Modern Slavery Act of 2015, demonstrating the bidder's ability to get insurance cover in the market, demonstrate to the authority their approach on skills and apprentices, as well as confirming their approach to ensure equal opportunities and diversity for the whole workforce. And finally, in the pass or fail criteria, they must demonstrate that they have not been involved in blacklisting. Apart from technical, which will score 60% of the marks, the other areas where they will be awarded marks in the selection questionnaire will be 5 marks on supply and supply chain management and the demonstration of its strength and capability, 20 marks will be awarded on the evidence provided around health, safety and well-being, particularly around innovation. 5 marks on environmental management policy capability, and 5 marks on quality management policy and capability. Finally, we will award 5 marks on the demonstration of building information modelling policy and their capability around this. From the selection criteria, the bidders will be ranked, with the first 3 going through to ISDS. The ISDS tender structure is as follows. By November of this year, 3 bidders will be invited to participate in the ISDS process. These 3 bidders will be given 5 months to develop a detailed solution, which will include site visits by our technical and health and safety teams to relevant operating sites. This assumes that they will be able to make such visits under the current COVID-19 issues. After the submission of the detailed solution, there will be a 1-month evaluation where these 3 bidders will all be assessed. This will be followed by an intense period of 6 months of dialogue between the authority and the individual bidders. At the end of this dialogue, an invitation will be issued to submit a final tender. The bidders remaining in the process will have 4 months to develop and issue their final tender. After the final tender is received, there will be a 2-month evaluation period by the authority. The authority will then spend 1 month going through its internal approvals and going back to members for sanction to sign a contract before notifying the successful bidder of contract award. Following this notification, there will be a 1-month standstill period to allow for potential challenges before the contract is executed. At ISDS, 3 tenders will be invited to go forward. We will be inviting 3 bidders after the down selection from the selection questionnaire submissions. This will help the dialogue and negotiation period, as they will be more manageable with those best suited to the project. With a well-chosen and minimal number of bidders, the level of costs incurred by all parties should be minimised. Also, with a lower number of bidders, the opportunity for success will be maximised. On the subject of procurement dialogue, I would like to make the following points. In my experience, dialogue is one of the most important parts of the process. It enables 2 things. Firstly, the authority to fully understand every aspect of the bid, so they can be fairly and accurately scored at the end of the process. Secondly, it ensures that the bidder understands and addresses all the requirements of the authority in a well-considered and well-informed way. As I mentioned previously, this will be an intense process over 6 months. These meetings will be held in London at a central location that is accessible for all parties. And in the light of the current situation, we may hold the option of holding these through Microsoft Teams. These dialogue meetings will be full-day meetings, and both the authority and bidders will ensure that the appropriate personnel are available to carry out a successful dialogue with meaningful outcomes. For the dialogue sessions, there will be no restrictions on the topics that can be discussed. However, the expected key work streams for dialogue will be the technical solution, including programme, legal, focusing on the contract markup, commercial, to discuss pricing and risk allocation, health and safety. We must fully understand how the contractor proposes to keep all the workforce safe. Well-being. the authority is looking for innovation from the contractor on how they will improve the working environment. Social value. Again, we want to understand how the contractor will ensure that this project has a positive and long-lasting impact for the community in which we are building it. The ISDS evaluation criteria are based around technical, commercial, and quality and management. The technical evaluation will receive 46% of the overall marks. Technical receives the greatest weighting because this reflects the importance to the authority of ensuring that the proposals will deliver a reliable facility which will operate to meet the required performance standards for many years to come. For the technical solution, we will focus on the deliverability of the process system, the civils works, the implementation of the construction, commissioning, testing, and the implementation of operations and the training of operations staff for future service delivery. The commercial evaluation will receive 30% of the overall total. The commercial evaluation places the greatest weight on the assessment of the whole life cost model. The whole life cost model has been created to make sure the authority can test the cost of the proposed design during operations and construction, so that the balance between capital and operational costs are fully understood and can be assessed. The operational cost element is not included in the contract, but this will mean the authority can have confidence that the costs to the North London Waste Authority and the boroughs we serve is being assessed as part of the process. The other elements relate to the acceptance of contract terms and risk positions. Quality and management attracts 24% of the final evaluation. Quality and management contains the separate elements relating to other aspects of the contract, which are of key importance to this procurement and the North London Waste Authority. Health, safety and wellbeing will score 10% of the total. The ability of the contractor to deliver on delivery management will attract 5%. Social value and the long-lasting impact on the community will attract 5%. And lastly, stakeholder management by the contractor will attract 4%. Even though in quality and management the individual scores are slightly lower than the other sections, the bidders will need to take into account these elements in putting forward their tenders if they are to have the maximum chance to win this procurement. Next, I would like to talk about risk allocation, which I know is of key importance to those seeking to bid this contract. The key principle, as we have always said, is that the party best able to control events and manage risk should hold that risk. Therefore, the contractor will carry the risk of plant availability and the quality of work, for example. The ground condition risk will be mainly at the authority's door, and the contractor will hold technical risk, geotechnical risk relating to their piling solutions, etc. As we've said before, the authority will make available ground condition information that it has compiled over the years of developing this project. We also recognise that working on an operational site creates its own risks. It is intended to have an agreement with London Energy to add to the existing site working arrangements. And provided the contractor complies with that agreement, the authority will hold the risk of the interface with LEL operations on site. As you will have seen from our recent announcements, the authority will seek to make sure that the site is registered under NECI. However, we do understand that contractors may have some reservations regarding the risk positions on industrial relations. To address this, the authority will hold the risk for disputes that arise when the contractor can demonstrate that they have followed the working rule agreement and the employer's code of practice. The authority will maintain a structured dialogue with the contractor and the trade unions to determine the cause of any dispute and the party that can carry the responsibility of such a dispute. We have drafted into the special conditions clauses that will help the contractors avoid any risks in industrial relations where they are not at fault. I know during our feedback sessions, a lot of bidders have talked about their proposed bid structure and the implications of the recent COVID-19 pandemic, which has stopped them coming to arrangements for consortia. Therefore, we would like to stress that within the public procurement rules, we do have flexibility on the process. The authority does accept that candidates may adjust the members of their consortium. They may change subcontractors, or changes may occur to the financial position of the candidates or other consortium members. Therefore, at any time during the process, if there are changes, candidates must advise the authority as soon as practicable. This also applies if the selection questionnaire response has been submitted prior to the SQ response deadline. The authority reserves the right to consider the effect of any changes, and the authority may request that a candidate resubmits its SQ response so that it may assess the candidate's changed response to the SQ. In this event, the authority reserves the right to impose conditions on or even disqualify any candidate who makes or suffers changes to any aspect of their SQ responses, where such changes lead to a deterioration in the score that was obtained by that candidate, unless there is substantial justification which can be provided to the satisfaction of the authority. Some important reminders now on changes to bid structures. By responding to the selection questionnaire, all candidates shall be deemed to have consented to future changes in any other candidate's contracting structure, consortium structure, or membership. The authority will assess the effect that any changes may have on those candidates, continue to be included in the process, and will take the steps necessary to ensure the authority meets its legal and procurement obligations. Where a consortium member is also a subcontractor to another candidate or candidates, whether at the time of making any SQ response or subsequently, then, as a potential subcontractor, they should advise the relevant candidate that they are also participating as a consortium member within another candidate, and, where relevant, as a subcontractor to another candidate. And care should be taken by all parties to ensure that any information passing between the relevant candidate and the subcontractor relates solely to the construction of the relevant subcontract, and that any information provided by one party to the other is provided on a strictly need-to-know basis and in compliance with the provision of the non-collusion conditions. Whilst a company may be a consortium member of one candidate and a subcontractor of another candidate, if more than one consortium is relying on the technical references and/or the economic or financial standing of a consortium member or subcontractor, the authority will only invite the highest scoring such candidate to proceed to the detailed solution stage. In terms of bid structure, a very common structure we have seen is where the contract is between the EPC and North London Waste Authority as the client, with the process and construction contractors feeding into that joint venture EPC and having a joint venture agreement between them and their own suppliers and subcontractors beneath them. However, that is not the only structure, and we have 4 possible alternatives here. These are only examples of acceptable structures. This is not an exhaustive list. When preparing the SQ response, we would ask all potential candidates to make use of the clarification opportunity. Please ask questions. If you're in any doubt about the acceptability or the use of a structure, then it is worth asking the authority the question. We are happy to consider different EPC structure alternatives as long as they meet the procurement rules. So the possible alternatives are Model A, where it's a single entity EPC who can deliver all of the works under the contract. Model B, again, is a single entity EPC, but with subcontractors. And here, the entity may rely on the experience for either references or financial standing of that contractor. However, that subcontractor must be used in the works. Model C, a consortium, where a group of legal entities can gather together. Between them, they're capable of supplying the references and financial standings. However, we must point out that if you're a consortia based on a group of legal entities, the authority will contract with those parties on a joint and several basis. On Model D, we have a joint venture, which is the example we gave on the previous page. Please look at the potential structures, contact us if you need to, but please bid in a way that makes sense for the entities in your consortium. And remember that the avenue is always open to change that structure based on the slides I've just gone through, as long as the change in structure does not deteriorate your position. Thank you for your time and listening. I will now hand over to Richard Bean, our project manager, who will take you through his presentation.
Hi, I'm Richard Bean, the ERF project manager. Today I'll present our approach on how we plan to deliver the ERF project. My objective is to provide an update on our progress and thinking to aid in the development of your tender. Since our last Market Information Day, we have made significant progress in the development of the ERF. I'm delighted to say we've obtained the approvals needed under the Development Consent Order from the London Borough of Enfield. We've also completed design development to finalise the project's baseline in areas such as utilities, ground conditions, and operational interfaces. My update will focus on scope, construction methodology and programme, and how we plan to transition from construction into full-time operation. I'll then conclude with an overview of what we see as the key project delivery risks and what mitigations we've put in place to manage these. So, firstly, I'm going to update you on the scope of the ERF project. I'll now update you on the ERF scope. The image on screen is an indicative section of the ERF. This view is from the northern boundary of the Eco Park, with the tipping hall to the east and the stack to the west. Under this contract, the contractor will act as the principal designer and principal contractor. The contractor will be responsible for the delivery of all design, engineering, procurement, construction, commissioning, testing, operator training, and handover requirements of the new ERF. This also includes all auxiliary buildings, associated infrastructure, and landscaping works. All this will be delivered within a 45-month programme. At the end of this 45-month programme, following commissioning and testing, the plant will move into full-time operation, after which there'll be a 24-month defects liability period. The ERF will consist of 2 identical process lines, each line comprising an advanced moving grate combustion unit. Each unit will be sized to process 350,000 tonnes per year, giving an overall plant capacity of 700,000 tonnes annually. The balance of the plant will consist of a heat recovery boiler, a gas flue treatment system incorporating selective catalytic reduction. This feeds into a common turbine generator set and air-cooled condensing system. The plant will be CHP enabled with a heat offtake system for district heating and electricity export. Included within the scope are connections for the ERF to the substation to the north and from the ERF to the newly constructed recycling and recovery facility to the south. In summary, the scope includes all civils, buildings, architectural treatments, on-site utility connections, landscaping, and all other works needed to support the operation of the new ERF. And for the avoidance of doubt, a compliant bid must include moving grate technology, selective catalytic reduction, and be CHP enabled. This plant must also fit within the building envelope that has been agreed under the development consent order and by the approvals from the London Borough of Enfield. The ERF construction site is constrained by the Eco Park site boundary to the north, east and west, and to the south by the existing EFW. As part of our tender planning, we've developed a methodology taking account of these constraints and other operational interfaces across the Eco Park. The ERF project area is within the green site boundary shown on screen. There is a 3-hectare laydown area to the southeastern corner of the site. This is where the contractor's offices and wellbeing facilities will be installed. Our methodology provides access to site in 2 phases. The first phase being in the eastern section, followed by the western section some 6 months later. Following a period of early engineering, earthworks commenced in the east with the installation of the bunker piles and construction of the structural retaining wall. This early construction of the retaining wall will enable on-site placement of excavated spoil from the bunker. I'll now develop this further and provide further details on our ERF construction programme. Following on from construction methodology, I'll now take you through our tender construction programme. Our contract documentation, schedules and specifications have been developed based on this programme, a summary of which you can see on screen. Key features of this include it runs for 45 months between the effective date when the contract is executed and the takeover date when the plant moves into full-time operation. It allows for front-end engineering design to provide early engineering for the bunker earthworks. And as previously mentioned, there is a phased approach to site handover from the east to the west, with the west being handed over some 6 months later than the east. Early earthworks commence in the east around the bunker and landscaping features. This includes the early construction of a landscape retaining wall to enable placement of excavated spoil from the bunker area. This is followed by earthworks, piling and the floor slab construction in the west. Once the process hall and bunker floor slabs are complete, then the placement of the grate and boiler commences. The erection of the process equipment will then follow a build sequence through the process line heading west towards the stack and air-cooled condensers. At construction completion, the cold, then the hot commissioning will take place, during which time there is a 300 performance test that must be completed within a 90-day trial operation period. At this point, the plant will move into full-time operation with the issuing of the takeover certificate. A 24-month defects liability period will then occur, during which an 8,000-hour availability test must be completed. The project then concludes with the issuing of the final certificate. In my next slide, I'll focus more on the latter stages of the programme and provide more detail about transition from construction into full-time operation. A key enabler to the successful completion of the ERF project will be the transition from construction into full-time operation. The image on screen shows the phases the project will progress through to enable this successful transition. We have developed specific schedules to define the requirements for this transition. These include schedules for training, pre-installation testing, construction and installation, commissioning and takeover, and the defects liability period through to final takeover. In addition to these schedules, a transition plan will be developed to define and capture the staffing requirements necessary to support the intended operation of the new ERF. Having given you an update on the scope, methodology, programme, and how we plan to transition from construction into full-time operation, I'd like to conclude my presentation with an overview as to what we see as the key project risks and what actions we've put in place to mitigate these. The table on screen includes some key risks we've identified during the development of the ERF project. Key risks we've mitigated include consent and permits and site access. We've also provided great clarity around the project's baseline information regards site constraints and operational interfaces. So as I get to the end of this section of the presentation, I hope I've provided you with a clear and informative overview on our planned approach to delivering the ERF project. All that's left for me to say is thanks for your time, and I very much look forward to engaging with you next month as part of this ERF procurement.
Hello, it's Martin Capstick, the Managing Director, back again to conclude this webinar. The information we've provided has built on that from previous market information days. We hope it gives you all the insight you need into our approach as client and our recognition of key issues that interest the market. From our perspective, I'd want to emphasize as a conclusion that despite the coronavirus pandemic, we are successfully managing both our day-to-day responsibilities and achieving real progress on the project. COVID-19 is not deflecting our authority from our purpose. We think the presentations have shown that we've taken account of issues raised by interested parties in previous market information days. And as a result of that, we're shaping our approach to be an attractive tenderer. We consider that we have documentation which is thoroughly prepared, has been reviewed, and gives confidence that the procurement is proceeding on a solid basis with a well-justified and sensible approach to risk. And we want you to feel the same when you read the tender documents. And we hope that these points will match the sense that you've got during the webinar. We are still listening. So if you have further questions and feedback, please email them to our email address, info@northlondonheatandpower.london. This final slide provides contact details. There's a reminder of our email address. And if we do receive any questions and they come to us by midday on the 30th of June, we'll aim to reply on the same day. If there are questions, then in any case, we'll respond within 24 hours whenever the questions are submitted. So July, we'll see the launch of this procurement. Please keep an eye on our project website, northlondonheatandpower.london. We're excited to be moving forward on this tender, and we look forward to you coming on the journey with us. Thank you.